Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. I'm Alexa Allen and each week I talk about a new true crime, conspiracy, or mystery. Last week we talked about Michael Rockefeller. If you guys haven't got a chance to watch that, I'll link it right up here. It's a really interesting case. I want to thank all my new subscribers. You guys are awesome. I'm so excited to be doing this channel and sharing these stories with you guys. Thank you so much. I did already record this one time during the day, but it was a hot mess. So here I am doing it again. So let's get right into this week's case. As you may have seen from the title, this week's case is about the Circleville letters. If you haven't already heard of this case, it is a roller coaster, and I'm really excited to hear what you guys think about it because there are a lot of things happening. So Circleville, Ohio is a little town about 25 miles south of Columbus. This story takes place in 1976, and at the time the population was around 14,000 people. So late in that year, the residents of the town start receiving these anonymous letters in the mail, and they're really gossipy letters, okay? This is like the OG Gossip Girl. They have little secrets they know about these people, like they're watching them. And these letters were all postmarked from Columbus, Ohio, but they had no return address. And one of the most aggressive and detailed letters is to a woman named Ron Gillispie. Mary was a woman who lived in Circleville at the time. She was married and had children, and she was the school bus driver. So Mary's letter read as follows. Stay away from Massey. Don't lie when questioned about knowing him. I know where you live. I've been observing your house, and I know you have children. This is no joke. Please take it serious. Everyone concerned has been notified, and everything will be over soon. So this guy she's accused of having the affair with in the letter is Gordon Massey, and he's a superintendent at the school. Mary kept this letter to herself. She didn't tell anyone. She even received a second letter that had similar verbiage, and she still kept quiet about it. But then a third one came, and the third one was a little more threatening. The third letter says, Gillispie, you've had 2 weeks and done nothing. Admit the truth and inform the school board. If not, I will broadcast it on CBS, posters, signs, and billboards until the truth comes out. And right around the same time, her husband gets a letter as well. And Ron's letter is intense. Ron's letter says, we must inform you that your wife is having an affair with Mr. Massey. Eliminate them both before they eliminate you. Remember, we know where you work, and we know your red and white truck. No one can help you. Think of your children and their future. Call the school board and report the truth after you finish your investigation. Notify the school board immediately. Again, your life is in danger. So at this point, Mary decides to tell her husband about the letter she got. She lets him know, yeah, I've been receiving these letters too, but she claims to know nothing about these affairs she's accused of having. So Ron and Mary tell a few people about the letters. They tell Ron's sister, Karen, and her husband, Paul Fresher, and his sister about these letters. And one day they have a family meeting and they all sit down and they discuss who could be writing these letters. They all kind of give their opinions and thoughts about who this could be. Now, a couple of the letters were signed W. So they come to the conclusion that this could be Gordon Massey's son, whose name is William. And Paul, he says, why don't I write William a letter and tell him to back off? Why does Paul have to do it? Why don't you do it? Or like talk to him in person? Why are you writing him a letter? It's all about the letters, the dramatics, the theater of it. So Paul writes this letter to William. And the letters, they stop. And everything's cool for about 9 months. And then that following August, so we're in 1977 now, Ron receives a few more letters, and on August 19th, 1977, he receives a phone call. Ron is at home alone with the 2 children, and he receives a call that infuriates him. When it was over, he slammed the phone down, grabbed his gun, and took off in his truck. So this call was allegedly the author of the Circleville letters, and whatever exchange they had really got to Ron, and some people even think he might have recognized whose voice it was, and he was off to get that person. Unfortunately, Ron didn't make it far. Shortly after he left, he was found dead. He had crashed his truck head-on into a tree and was killed. The Pickaway County Sheriff, Dwight Radcliffe, heads the investigation. It was discovered that Ron's blood alcohol level was 2 times over the legal limit. But Ron's family insisted there had to be some mistake. They claimed that he was not drunk when he left the house, and Ron was someone who didn't drink. He would only drink on rare occasion, and when he did, he wouldn't get drunk. Something really suspicious about the scene was that Ron's gun had been fired once, but they couldn't find a bullet in the car or anywhere around the scene of the accident. So the sheriff has one suspect or person of interest for the incident. He brings him in, and the suspect passes a polygraph test, so the sheriff rules him out and rules Ron's death as an accident due to drunk driving. Now, after this, some of the residents get these letters about the sheriff. The letters claim that the sheriff was involved in a cover-up for Ron's accident, and there's more to that story. Paul, Ron's brother-in-law, he supports this, and he said it was very strange that the sheriff first thought there was foul play, but as soon as that one person passed the polygraph test, he just said, oh, it was an accident. He changed pretty quickly and didn't really look further. And the letters just keep coming. Between 1977 and 1983, Mary received 39 letters, and the residents of the town totaled over 1,000 letters. Also during this time, that Superintendent Gordon, the one that Mary was accused of having the affair with, he gets a divorce from his wife. And Mary is now a widow, and the two come clean. They say they've been having an affair, but it didn't start until after Gordon got the divorce, and Mary was already a widow. Which to me is a little off. Like, why would you go and have an affair or a relationship with the person that you were accused of having an affair with and basically led to your husband's death? And the letters eventually escalate once again. This time they start hanging signs around town. And one of these signs in particular is threatening to Mary's child. One day Mary's on her bus route. She's driving down the road and she sees this sign and she's infuriated. She pulls the bus over and she goes to tear down the sign. And when she tears it down, she discovers it's a booby trap. Okay, this thing was rigged with a gun to fire when someone pulled the sign down. But luckily for Mary, it didn't work. So Mary takes down this booby trap and she takes it back to her house to inspect it. I don't know why she just didn't bring it to the cops. She discovers that the serial number on the gun is like filed down. So she brings it to the cops and they're actually able to decipher the serial number. And it belongs to none other than Paul Fresher. So Paul had recently separated from Karen, which was Ron's sister. Sheriff Radcliffe goes to Paul and he asks him to do a handwriting test. The sheriff has Paul write some of these letters in the block letter form of the Circleville writer. And then he asks Paul to show him where he keeps his gun. Paul leads him to the garage and he goes to show him where the gun is, and surprise, surprise, gun's missing. At this point, Sheriff Radcliffe arrests Paul Fresher for attempted murder. So on October 24th, 1983, Paul is tried for the attempted murder of Mary Gillispie. An expert handwriting analysis determined that Paul's handwriting did match those of the Circleville letters. But this was debated in court because the sheriff specifically had Paul write in those block letter forms, which is kind of easy to mimic. Mary testified that she did believe that Paul was the Circleville writer, and Paul's boss testified that he was not at work the day that the booby trap was set up. A witness testified that she saw a man next to a yellow El Camino around the time that the booby trap was set up, hanging around that area. But his description did not match Paul's. And despite all of this, Paul was found guilty of attempted murder, but they didn't have enough evidence to prove that he was the Circleville writer. And Paul was sentenced to 7 to 24 years. But guess what? While Paul was in prison, the letters kept coming. Paul himself even received letters from the Circleville writer taunting him. One of the letters Paul received read, "Shame how things work out. Better you than me. Sheriff says you did it, but we know better, don't we?" Paul was even put in solitary confinement, and still the letters were coming, still marked from Columbus, Ohio, which, by the way, was almost 100 miles away from the prison that Paul was in. But the sheriff insisted that they had the right person, and he claimed that Paul was somehow orchestrating all of this from inside. But a prison rep said that it would be almost impossible for Paul to be orchestrating this and sending out these letters. While Paul was in prison, he took 3 polygraph tests in hopes of proving his innocence and making his parole, but his first 2 paroles were denied. Finally, in 1994, after 10.5 years in prison, Paul was released. He was granted parole, and that same year, Unsolved Mysteries, remember that show, decided to do a story, an episode on the Circleville letters. And are you ready for this one? While Unsolved Mysteries was filming this segment, they received a letter from the Circleville writer himself. Their letter says, "Forget Circleville, Ohio. Do nothing to hurt Sheriff Radcliffe. If you do come to Ohio, you sickos will pay. Signed, the Circleville writer." Okay, so let's get into some theories here. In 1993, a journalist and private investigator, Martin Yant, investigated the Circleville writer for a column he was writing. Martin believed that the Circleville writer was a man named David Longberry. Longberry worked with Mary at the school, and he always had a thing for her, and Mary really was not interested in him. She couldn't be less interested in him. And Martin thinks that it's possible that David started writing these letters in a jealous rage. We can't ask David himself because in the late 90s he went on the run after sexually assaulting a minor and then killed himself. Martin Yant also thought there could be a second writer, and he thought that person was Paul's ex-wife, Karen. So at the time of Paul's arrest, Paul and Karen were going through this nasty divorce, and Karen lost everything. She was discovered having an affair, and Paul took custody of the children. He got the house, he got everything. And Karen was living in a trailer on Mary's property. And one night, Karen says to Mary, "You know what? I think Paul is the Circleville writer." And after Paul was convicted, Karen got her kids back, she got the house, and she got Paul's pension. So she made out pretty well. Mary Gillispie herself has even been suspected as the Circleville writer. Some people think it's possible she, as the bus driver, would hear the kids gossiping about their parents and heard different stories and decided to create this Circleville writer character. And another suspect is that man in the yellow El Camino. So that witness that said she saw him changed the color from yellow to orange the day she was on trial. And Karen's brother drives an orange El Camino. So, some people think Karen totally framed Paul. I don't know, there are a lot of working parts to this case, and it could easily be any number of these people. Mary didn't really have motive. She had ammunition, I guess, with the gossip. That's definitely a possibility, but I don't know why she would put herself in such a weird position unless she wanted her husband to leave her and didn't know how to tell him. But Paul, yeah, it is weird that Paul was like, "I'll write to the Circleville writer for you guys and get him to back off." Like, that was weird. And please let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I'm curious to see your thoughts on this case. And let me know if there's any cases you want me to cover in the future. Thanks so much for coming by. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys next time.